Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Shawn Flynn with us today. He's the host at Silicon Valley Podcast, also principal at Global Capital Markets. Today we're going to talk about Silicon Valley, everything that has to do with AI investing, VCs, and everything in between. This pod is brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start a podcast and monetize it quick with YouTube AdSense, leads, and sponsors, we help you monetize your podcast through this, and you can get an ebook on our website and a masterclass if you want to start your own AI podcast this year. Shawn, welcome to the pod again for round two. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Charles, thanks for having me on the podcast again. Right now, here in Silicon Valley, a lot of conversations around, well, what's 2025 going to look like? What's going to look like with the economy? How are the new administration going to impact? What's it going to look like in Silicon Valley moving forward? Just the whole environment. I'm not sure if your listeners have spent time in San Francisco in the Bay Area, but there's been some ups and downs over the years. Just a lot of conversations around what does the next few years look like for Silicon Valley.
And what does it look like, in your opinion? Because I talk to a lot of founders, AI founders nowadays. The best of them are always in the Silicon Valley. I can tell you that, as much as people don't like hearing that. And things are moving really fast there. So much so that I would think of buying a house in Silicon Valley, which to many would be a terrible investment. But things are moving so fast there. I think it's the heart and center of the AI revolution. So what do you think will happen with all the trends, right? The new administration, the Stargate project, and all of that. What's your opinion on that?
Well, for example, last night I went to a Association of Corporate Growth event, and there's an amazing panel with Shawn Randolph, head of the economic departments for the Bay Area Council. There was a managing partner of Fusion Fund. They're a fourth fund. They're on their fourth fund right now, deploying that. There was a couple other people on the panel. Is a spectacular event, and they were talking about how, if you look at just AI jobs in the U.S., Silicon Valley, the circle over it on a map is more than the next 13 areas combined. Like, you have these little pockets all throughout the U.S., but Silicon Valley really is the hub, where something, I think it was 46% of investment in AI last year was in companies in Silicon Valley globally. And of that, 26% was basically five companies: Databricks, Anthropic, OpenAI, the ones that we hear about all the time. So there is that huge demand for AI in Silicon Valley. And people are talking about as this could be the revitalization of the area, because during the pandemic, there was a drop. There's a lot of empty buildings still in San Francisco. If you go downtown, the stuff you see on the news about the homeless epidemic, it's real. Anyone that visits, they I don't want to say anything negative really about the city, but a lot of them are shocked. They're shocked that a city they visited 10 years ago could be kind of at the state it is right now. So there's a lot of conversations of repurposing these buildings, what's going to happen in the coming years. But just to talk about AI and tech, there's a lot of investment in those areas. There's a lot happening in those areas. And Silicon Valley, if you're in that space, in that sector, and there's other areas as well, med tech, Web3's getting a lot of conversations around Web3 right now with the new administration. But even kind of those technology sectors you don't hear about as much, real estate, tech, and that, it's still a great place to be for all of those.
Right. And how are you going to take advantage of that? What's your investment thesis? Where are you putting your tokens?
So for myself, it's more not so much investing in those, but more helping those companies and representing them for when they're looking to either raise capital or looking to get acquired. There's a lot of conversations around just transactions happening this year that have been postponed. Last year, there's how many companies were people hoping, expecting to go public, and it didn't happen? Well, they've been sitting on the sidelines. Now might be the time. There's a lot of these other companies that have also been looking for a way to get some liquidity for their employees, for their early investors through secondaries. I'm not sure how familiar your listeners are with that, but I mean, when you hear these companies that have been public for so long, I mean, OpenAI, SpaceX, all these, there's a market, the secondary market for trading those shares, and that's getting a lot of interest as well. So, I mean, myself personally, I'm just that middleman, that broker facilitating these transactions, whatever the company wants. And that's where I spend my time, my energy, building those networks, the relationship, the conversations to have those.
Right. And in your opinion, is the money in secondary markets, since there's so much competition, the public markets, um, and will the AI revolution change something in the structure these the way these companies are structured, right? How much employees, their valuations, and if so, if the structure of these companies and the way they're operated will change, and if that will change their value and their valuation, how will VCs adapt to that?
Okay, there's so much in that one question there. So let's try to break it apart into some segments. Is the processes and strategies and businesses going to change with AI? I don't see how it couldn't. You take what for example, marketing companies last year, a lot of the valuations got crushed. Why? Because this company that had 100 employees that have been doing something for 10 years, now half the staff gets replaced by AI, that anyone can buy licenses agreements to that AI software, those solutions. So all these locked in value of this company evaporated pretty quickly, and we saw that in a lot of different businesses as well. So if you have a company right now and you're looking, okay, they got this many employees. Well, if we implement this software and we change these processes where this software replaces this SDR, or this software replaces this admin assistant, or this complements this one person, and instead of hiring, they're able to do two or three per people's jobs. I mean, that changes the cost structure, that changes the P&L of these companies. So you'll have these companies that will implement AI, and then you have these companies that won't. And the ones that won't are going to lose market share to the ones that will, because they'll be able to do things more efficient, faster. They'll be able to, compete a lot in different ways against these companies. So we're going to see a shift in market share go from the companies that are resistant AI usage internally to the ones that are adopting it and using it. But that's one thing. Another is looking at valuations of companies in general. I mean, last year we saw SaaS companies, their valuation multiples get kind of, hurt a little bit. I mean, AI is coming in many areas, because it's okay. Before, how much was the upfront cost to build this company versus, okay, now it's so much cheaper with AI and these solutions. So that's another boundary or barrier of entry or moat that's getting chipped away by AI. And then just going back to your last part of that question was just these transactions and the money and that. I mean, AI can do such a great job when it's just matching theses, matching this buyer, this seller, matching, person A and person B. I mean, I'm looking at AI going, wow, how can it either, well, complement what I do or possibly replace me in the coming years? Because let's be honest, uh, that AI that's able to go through this data set and pick out the criteria and those investors, or that match this seller, how much faster can it be done by the machine than a human? How much more accurate? How much more? I mean, it could probably do 30 seconds what's taking me 40 hours right now, and it's just going to get better. So looking at that way, the way that these transactions are happening now versus how they'll happen in the coming years, it's going to be night and day.
I agree with the AI part, and yeah, it's not just faster; it's like better as well because it has like such a great funnel, great algorithm there. Your podcast, how's it going, and what are your goals with it for 2025 vs your 2024 goals of the pod?
So 2024 had some incredible interviews, but then also my wife and I, we traveled quite a bit at the end of the year, And so I took a little bit of a pause on it. It's been going for quite some time. We're in episode 250 or so, and they were weekly episodes, so it's been about 5 years. But now I'm planning, and I have several in-person interviews planned in Silicon Valley. So if you're in the Bay Area and are looking to see a live recording, I'm interviewing TJ Reynolds next Thursday. He's the founder of Cypress Semiconductors. I also have the author of Never Eat Alone lined up. I have a lot of great um, kind of leaders of technology, whether it's creating the tech or the investors of it. I have the old head of technology for Kleiner Perkins coming on the podcast soon. So that's what I'm really looking forward to in 2025 is having these kind of closed gathering live recordings, and then also others remote and virtual, but just creating this reference library for everyone out there, and hopefully it really helps entrepreneurs around the world.
Love it. And sponsors, are you do you have a strategy for these, and are you gonna A/B test some new formats for the actual podcast?
For sponsors itself, I've been approached by several that have asked to sponsor the show. To be honest, and I know I'm leaving money on the table. I've never actually had sponsors for the show other than sponsors for events. The event sponsors, they contribute everything for the events to make them happen, the space, the food, the beverages, and that's fantastic. Um, but what I'm actually really gearing towards is an end of the year huge event. Create the Future. We did that last year. It was fantastic. 1,000+ people. We had the dean of UC Berkeley as the keynote speaker, and it's gearing all those sponsors and that towards this big event we're planning to have the end of August, which as soon as the final date is set, Charles, I'd love to send you information to share with your audience about that.
Love it. And other goals that you have for 2025 this year?
I have a lot of goals, some personal ones to get down to my pre-pandemic weight, some growth of just places I'd like to travel and books I'd like to read, and then business and family of the number of deals I want to execute on this year. And I want to expand a little bit of the practice to some areas where we haven't really had too much. We've had experience in the past, but I see so much opportunity moving forward with companies overseas looking to onshore to the U.S. for manufacturing to go public through reverse merger, through SPACs, I just see a lot of overseas companies looking for access and playing a part in that. There's just a lot of transactions that I'm really looking forward to from my initial conversations so far in 2025 that I'm excited to be a part of in some capacity this coming year. And Charles, keeping the conversation going with you and being on your show again.
Yeah, for sure. Your event strategy, tell me a bit more about that because I'm not doing much physical events this year. Do you still feel there's an ROI to go physically and meet people post pandemic?
Yeah, and the reason for that is being online Zoom fantastic. I think for when you have the relationship or screening to see if you want to continue the relationship, but I think to really cement it, in-person time is fantastic. Just being able to. The other day I met. There's 6 of us gathering for coffee, and just the conversation, the dialogue of the 6 of us around that table at Pete's Coffee, it was so much more meaningful than a 6-person Zoom call, right? I mean, Zoom call fantastic. You can get a lot of them in. You can start relationships, but there's something about sitting face to face, looking at the person in the eye, that I don't think can be replaced. So I still think there's a place for that. Small events I really enjoy personally. Big events I do like, but the small events where at the very end of it you feel like everyone that attended, and that you have your action items, your follow-ups with this person or that person, or if you connected. I think you can get a lot done in a short amount of time for the smaller intimate events.
And what's your tip to get the most out of a conversation with someone that you don't know?
Good question. going back to the two ears, one mouth, listen more than speaking, and kind of once you feel you have rapport, then start diving into the questions of you know a little bit deeper, steer it towards the information you want. But I think people lack the patience, or they skip the rapport part. And once you have rapport with someone, they want to open up. They want to tell you everything. If you have rapport with somebody and then you say, okay, hey, I'm really interested in this, that I think that you're a part of, or I'm involved in this, is there anyone in your network that you think that could help, or would you or anyone want to be involved in any way? Once you hit that rapport, then things open up. But I think people skip that rapport part, and it could be a very short. It could just be connecting over something of, what's your hobby? Oh, I like tea. You like tea? I like tea. Great. Oh, that's great. Okay. Hey, have you ever been this or that? Just something where you get that moment where, you know what, this is a good person. I want to work with them. And also, I think it gives you that opportunity to have that gut feeling about that person. And I mean, how many of us have started working on projects with someone where you have that, you start getting that feeling that, I'm not so sure. And then 3 months later, it falls apart and you're like, I should have trusted my gut from day one. I think that, building a rapport, having that conversation face to face, I think you have that opportunity to get that gut feeling about that person really quick when you're in that situation.
I love it. Shawn, where can people find out more about you?
Best is connect with me on LinkedIn, just Shawn Flynn, ShawnFlynn. If you want to check out the podcast, the Silicon Valley Podcast.com. But connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, and I'll answer any of your questions, especially if your company's looking to get acquired, looking to raise capital, any of these major transactions in the next year or so. Please contact me.